Hey everybody, what's up? It's Jessica here, and today we have a very special episode for you. Hey Catherine, how are you?
I am doing fantastic. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And so we have a special guest today, Dr. Zebron, and she's going to introduce herself to you all. And she has a lot to share to us today about her birth story and also what she's doing to help moms. How are you today, Dr. Zebron?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. So, I just want to say I fell in love with Dr. Zebron when I saw a post about plant based diets. And then I started going back and just looking at all of the amazing content that she had posted and knew that she needed to be on our podcast. So, here she is. But she has such a wonderful story. And so, just please start out by telling us a little bit about you and how you landed at pelvic floor PT or women's health PT, because now you do everything. So let's just say, how did you get to doing everything?
Okay. So my name is Dr. Alison Zebron. I am a physical therapist. I do pelvic floor PT and different areas of physical therapy as well. I'm also a doula and holistic healer / practitioner, plant-based lover, and all of those things. So how did I start with pelvic floor PT? So that's kind of a long story. But it all started kind of after my second birth. So I have two sons, and after my second birth, which was kind of traumatic, an unplanned induction, after that, going through all of that, and the doctors didn't really explain what an induction was, and we can go into the birth story a little bit later. But after that, going through postpartum depression, anxiety, just not recovering well. As I look back in hindsight, knowing what I know now, like, okay, I did not recover well, still recovering. And it was about 6 months after I delivered my second son that I learned what a postpartum doula was. I knew what a birth doula was, but not quite sure what a postpartum doula was. And when I learned about that, I was like, wow, I wish I had that a couple months ago. It wasn't too late at the time, but in my mind, I thought it was too late. So learning about what a postpartum doula was, how doulas help women, moms, after they give birth, they come to the house, they help out, they can hold the baby while you rest, help with breastfeeding, and all of those different things. I really wanted to do something to help moms as well. So I wanted to become a postpartum doula. Through that journey of becoming a postpartum doula, I became a birth doula first. And then I was like, wow, I'm doing all of this. Like, I already have a degree in physical therapy. I wish I can kind of use my degree to do something similar. And that's when I learned more about pelvic floor PT. And in school, at least my school back then, they didn't really teach a lot about pelvic floor PT. Mm-hmm. They kind of talked about incontinence and a little bit about biofeedback and said, oh, well, if you want to go into this more, take some continuing education after you graduate and you can kind of go into that. And at the time I was like, yeah, I don't really want to learn about this. So good. So I really didn't know, as a physical therapist, I didn't really know much about pelvic floor physical therapy at all. So I was learning about it. I was like, wow, I can do this. So I'm on a journey to become a pelvic floor PT as I'm working on certifications to become a doula. So I did that. In the midst of all of that, I had a busy year. So in the midst of all of that, I was working at a hospital, and I was like, they also had an outpatient clinic. And I was like, well, why don't we just add pelvic floor PT to this clinic that already exists? I have the certification, like I could just do this here as well. So I ended up helping to set up a clinic at the hospital I was working at, as I did doula work on the side. So that's kind of a little bit of how I became pelvic floor PT and a little bit of how I became a doula.
Well, I'm here to tell you that it's still the same in PT school. They don't teach us much about it, at least not in my program anyway. Yeah. It's definitely still, if you want to do it, find out. But we're so glad that you did, and it's interesting that it kind of took you to have different like birthing experiences for you to decide that that's the realm of PT that you want to go in. I think that's a lot of people's stories. And thinking of stories, I think this is a good segue into your birth story. And so if you want to tell us a little bit more about that second birth that you feel like was more traumatic.
Okay, well, to tell the story about the second birth, I kind of got to go back to the first birth.
I love it.
So I will kind of keep it short. So my first son, and both of them were hospital births, vaginal births, just so you have that in your mind. So my first son, kind of typical pregnancy, a little bit pain here and there. I didn't know anything at this point about pelvic floor PT, didn't know anything about doulas, kind of heard about them. I was like, what's the point? And I had a midwife, which I'm so fortunate to have had a midwife at the time, and a good midwife, not just some random midwife, like actually a good midwife who was going to really take care of me for my first birth, because that kind of sets you up for your other births. So I had a really good midwife. I'm so thankful for her. And so I go into labor naturally. I labor at home. I'm doing all the things. Everything's going well. I get to the hospital. My labor stalls, and the midwives, and she actually brought in another midwife. So I had two midwives, which is actually key for the second story. I had two midwives helping out. So one was kind of like overseeing the other one, and one was helping with different positions. I had back labor, and they were helping me change the different positions, try different things, like really being a good team and really advocating for me. I didn't know this until after that my labor was taking, I guess, long, quote unquote, and they were not considering a C-section, but like, we don't know here. But good thing they never mentioned that to me, because that would have just thrown me all the way off.
Can I interrupt you for 1 minute and just ask, because I love hearing about all the different position changes and things that they did. What did they consider stalled labor, and how long did you stay stalled before things started up again?
So I labored at home for 12 hours. I got to the hospital and I was 7 centimeters. So I was like, okay, this baby's coming. No, the baby didn't come that quickly. It was another 10, I can't do math right now, 8 hours maybe. Another 8 hours of just really laboring. I had back, so a lot of pain with every single contraction, that a lot of pain. They had me in the pool. They had me doing every kind of position, on the toilet, on the birth ball, with the peanut ball, hands and knees, using the ball, like using the bar, like squat, everything. And so at one point, and I'm getting tired, so I was laboring at home all night long, and then getting into the hospital. So I hadn't eaten, hadn't really drinking anything. They were giving me things, but I was just in the zone, just didn't want to drink much, which I should have, because I became dehydrated. But I don't know why they considered it stalled, because my labor was under 24 hours.
Okay.
But good thing.
Well, that background helps, because you stayed at home for 12 of the hours. So if you had gone in, what we noticed is that if you go in right at the beginning, then after that 12th hour, you probably would have been hearing somebody talking about a C-section. So
I was like, I labored as long as I could, and I was like, okay, this is getting too painful. And I had stairs, so I had to go down the stairs. Like, I labored as long. I could have had the baby at home. I labored as long as possible. But then I got to the hospital and I stalled. I was like, oh, and I see that as common as well, that a lot of people labor at home, and as soon as they get in that car, they drive over to the hospital, and they're like, what happened? It's that's a whole nother story of just being able to labor in place wherever you are, but that's not everyone's story, and things like that. But yeah, so I labored for a while, and I think I got to either like 9, somewhere close to like I should be able to start pushing now, but I didn't feel the urge to push. So they said, well, just try anyway, just try. And I didn't take any labor classes that involved pushing. So I didn't know what it was supposed to feel like. Obviously, it's my first birth, and no one had told me. So they're like, "Don't you feel like you need a push?" And I was like, "No." And just like this voice, like right here, I was like, "No, not really." They're like, "Okay, well, let's try to push." And I'm pushing, and they're like, "No, not like that." And I'm like, "Well, explain it differently, because I don't know." Like, and I was pushing for hours. And I don't have the exact amount of hours because my husband forgot to like look at the clock. So it was hours. So at one point, like they were also getting frustrated because there was time I was pushing, but not pushing right. And I'm getting tired. And it's like the baby's right there. So they're like, we don't know what else to do or how to explain it more. Wow. So eventually, I don't know what I did. I just pushed a different way. And then they're like, "Yeah, like that." I was like that? And how I was pushing, it was like how you kind of need to have a bowel movement. So I was like, "Oh, okay." So I kind of got the idea. They were like, "Yes, push like that." And after a while, the baby just came out. So I delivered my first son. Midwives were great. Everything was fine for the most part, to keep that short. So that was kind of like my first birth. So going into the second birth, I'm thinking like, okay, it's gonna be similar, right? No, no,
Not at all.
not at all. Because once again, I was like, well, at the first time, I had two midwives, or I had a midwife. Like that's how it's gonna go. Midwives are like this. This is what I had. This is what's gonna happen with every other midwife. No. So in my mind, I was like, well, why do I need a doula? If like I had this setup, the two midwives, I kind of had one doing one thing and one was able to, tend to me and as a doula kind of would. So in my mind, I was like, what do I need a doula for? So I didn't have a birth doula once again for this next birth. And it was also a hospital birth. So how this one started, I had a regular checkup. I was 39 weeks. And throughout this pregnancy, they were kind of saying like, "Oh, your baby's kind of small. Your baby's kind of small. Eat this or eat that." And a couple of other things, but I really didn't. They never really explained anything, which is why you should have a doula to help explain those things, or take a class so you are more informed. Because a lot of the providers, even if it is a midwife, if you don't ask the right question, they may just assume that you know, or not have time to explain things, especially if you also have a doctor, which I had to see under this midwife, because she was like, "Oh no, you have to see the doctor because we're under doctors and you have to see her for this visit or something." So I was like, okay, whatever. So I go into a routine visit, 39 weeks, everything's fine. And the doctor's like, "Oh, well, they said your baby's small. Let's just do a little ultrasound in the office." I'm like, okay. She does all ultrasound. She's like, "Well, your baby does look kind of small, and I can't really measure the fluid. And, how do you feel about seeing your baby today?" I'm like, "What? Like, what are you talking about?" She's like, "Yeah, measure this fluid. Something looks a little off. They keep saying your baby's small. Yeah, let's just do an induction." I was like, "What? Today?" She was like, "Yeah. Can you make it to the hospital like in an hour?" I was like, "What?"
Wait.
Yeah.
Because we've heard the opposite, haven't we, Jessica? They say your baby big. Let's get in it.
So was this your first time seeing this doctor?
I saw her, I think, once before or something like that. But it was, it's like in and out, they're quick. Like, "Oh, let's measure. Heartbeat looks good. All right, you have any questions?" Like, in and out kind of thing. So this time, I guess she saw like the ultrasound or something and wanted to do like one herself. And she was like, "No, this doesn't look right to me. Let's do an induction today." And I was like, "What? Oh, okay." So it was like, and at this point, like you go in thinking like, just gonna sit down, just gonna measure heartbeat. I'm out of there.
Yes.
I did not plan to have a baby in an hour. And that's how and once again, did not explain anything. And once again, I didn't have a childbirth class, did not have a doula, did not read up on anything. I thought it was going to go like the first time. So I didn't really know what an induction was. Yeah. I knew it involved Pitocin. I know it was going to start my labor. I know it was going to be more painful. That was about it. So when she just said that and kind of like, "All right, well, get to the hospital when you can tonight and see you later." And she kind of left. And I was just in so many emotions, shocked. I'm like, is my baby okay? Am I okay? She didn't explain anything really. And I'm just like, literally in shock, just walking out like deer in headlights, having no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Is my baby okay or not? Because she made it seem like it's not okay, but I feel like he's okay, but they say it's not okay. So they're the professionals. They know.
Wow.
But all along, I felt like my baby was fine, but no one really cared how I felt. So of course, walking back to my car in shock, I'm like, I have so many things to prepare for. I have to go to the hospital. I have another son. I have to get the babysitter. I have to tell my husband. I have to pack my bag. I'm not ready. What's an induction?
What's an induction?
Right.
So fast forward, you get to the hospital and then
get to the hospital, and it just gets worse. I'm gonna try to sum it up. It gets worse. I get to the hospital. One, it's not an emergency because I still have to wait. So it's not an emergency. I get there, I still gotta wait. Gotta wait for the room. Someone else is giving labor. There's not another room, so I'm sitting in the waiting room. I'm like, okay, they finally let us in. And then they're like, oh, I'll sign these papers. We got to start an IV. And then, we got to get the stuff for the Pitocin. And then they're like, oh, we have to do saline. We have to like do this and do. I'm like, but why do I need that? They're like, oh, it's routine. It's routine. We have to do this. I'm like, okay. And this is already not going the way my first birth went.
Yeah.
Don't have a doula.
Pause. I'm sorry. Is this the same hospital?
No, different hospital. Okay. Different hospital. I have no idea what's going on. If I don't know what's going on, my husband doesn't know what's going on. So he's over there, like, not helping. You can't really help. You have no idea. If I have no idea, you have no idea. So I'm just all in my head, all in my emotions. I have no idea what's going on. They're starting to they're trying to get everything ready. Still hours going by. This is not an emergency in my mind. And mind you, since I didn't know what an induction was, I ate a little bit in my rush to get to the hospital, but I'm thinking like, oh, the baby will come tonight. So I didn't really eat. So I got there and then I was like, man, I'm starting to get really hungry. And then they were like, you can't eat. You're about to have this induction or something like that. And the midwife, she that had been seeing me comes in and she's like, oh, how you feeling? I'm like, and then I was like, well, I'm kind of hungry. And she was like, yeah, you can eat because this is going to take a while. I was like, wait, what? What?
I'll go with her recommendation, right? I'm eating.
Okay, it's going to take a while. She was like, yeah, inductions take like 12, 24 hours. I was like, what? No one told me. I'm still like, oh, well, yeah, so that you can definitely eat. Why don't you eat? Have her eat. Thank you.
Wait. So the confusion is frustrating, right? But do you know what I think? Because I've been to a childbirth class, I've been to a couple, and the only one who talked with me about what an induction was and what it would look like was when I went to a doula. Mm-hmm. So I think that with the frequency with which doctors recommend inductions, you would think that the childbirth classes would include in depth what's going to happen and what natural alternatives are available to inductions. Because when you said, I knew it would involve Pitocin, for me, I had a natural induction. I had no Pitocin. So it's like people don't even realize that those are options, but they should. There is nipple stimulation. Obviously, there is sex, which they say, well, we don't know if it works or not. But it's like if prostaglandins, it's something to try. And if all you're needing is the prostaglandins, which come out of the semen, then why not just dose sex? That's the problem, is that nobody's dosing it. So if you just try it one time and it doesn't work, then you're like, oh, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah. But healthcare is a business.
Exactly.
We can't make money off of you.
It's so true. Can't make money off of that. You telling the truth.
So make money for that.
Yes.
So I think so we can do something to you. Like, it's medical. We got to do something. So that's what they're trained to do.
Yeah.
So I get that. But for me, who had no idea what was going on, so I finally ate. They got the Pitocin started. And it actually went pretty quick. Like, it was about 6 hours later that I had my first contraction. So I was kind of, in my mind, like, well, looking back, I'm like, well, I could have probably just waited and went into labor on my own. So why can, and I was 39 weeks.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, why can't I just wait a week? And the doctor was like, no, we need to do this now. But I'm like, can we wait a couple of days? Can we try something? She was not having it. So yeah, had to induct, had the Pitocin. That started 6 hours later, first contraction. And then it was like 3 hours of labor, baby was out. Just like that. So very painfully, very painfully. But yeah, no, labor with no medicine, both births, very painful. But yeah, did all that, baby was out. One other thing was that with Pitocin, they want to constantly monitor the baby. So they have you wear the fetal monitor. They would have done the portable one, but it kept moving when I was trying to change positions. So they said, sorry, we can't do the portable one. We have to do you have to be constantly hooked up to the machine. So you cannot move. You have to stay in the bed. So that also added difficulty for my labor. Also made it more traumatic because I'm like, okay, this is not going at all how my first one went. I don't like this. I can't even move. I can't even do the positions that I knew helped me in my first labor. I have no one else in the room but me and my husband, but
I know what you mean.
but me. He's being helpful as he can, but it's me. It's me, and I can't do the positions that I need. So I'm just laying in the bed, and even if I'm moving in the bed like a little too much, they would pop their head and move. Stop moving! We can't see the bed. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that just ended up just more levels and more layers to like how I would never have another hospital birth if I can avoid it. So those were my birth stories. Yeah.
So, and this is interesting to hear that second story, because when you said a traumatic birth experience, and this is just from talking to other moms, I assumed that it was going to be like, I had an emergency C-section, I had a 3rd-degree tear, like all of those things.
Tear, but yeah.
Okay. So with you, it was kind of like just the shock and abruptness of everything, and the 180 switch between your first and your second, just the birth experience, The
birth experience, yeah. So that's also to give awareness to others out there that even if it didn't go how you planned, it can still be traumatic in a way, even emotionally, because you have your mind set up is going to go like this, or people are talking to you like they're just not explaining anything, and now you're having more fear. Fear is also traumatic, so it doesn't have to be this drastic thing that you have an emergency C-section and all of these things, but even just emotionally, from even just like how you said, like not going as expected, unplanned, and things like that. So yeah, and
the sad part is that you tried to advocate for yourself. Can I go home in labor? Can I wait a couple of days? Okay, wait, my baby's small. Is that bad? Is that like, you ask the questions, because that's what we try to get our moms to do. Ask the questions, advocate for yourselves. But it's almost like once you're in the system, you're stuck. And that's a very scary situation to be in.
It is. And I felt like at one point I just stopped talking to the nurses because they would pop their head and say, stop moving. And then I would just say to myself, like, man, this is really not going how my first birth went. Whatever nurse was in there, fiddling around with, they were like, well, this is not your first birth. Okay. And I'm like, I never said anything else. I was like, these people
said a lot.
Exactly right. That's the problem.
But I understand not wanting to, because it's like Catherine said, you're kind of like in their hands at that point, and you almost feel trapped. Yes. And like we always say, like, your birth, your healthcare in general should happen through you and not to you. And it sounded like the first experience happened through you. You were moving freely. And the second one, it definitely sounds like it happened to you. Like all this stuff was happening. It's about you and your baby, but it's still happening around you.
It's happening around me. And I felt like it was like an outer body thing. Like once they said you need to have an induction today, I was just like out of it. I was just like, need to get back to my other side. I need to do this. What's happening? I'm all in my head and no one's explaining anything to me. So I'm kind of like breaking down internally, but trying to stay focused because I got to go into labor and labor this baby. All of these things are swirling in my mind and I don't know how to process it. In general, I take time to process things. I can't process all the time in the moment. I need to, just like now I'm reflecting. It takes time for me to reflect, like, oh, wow, wait a minute. That wasn't good.
Yeah.
Good. The things that they were saying to you, that wasn't how it should have been. They weren't really nice. They should have taken the time. If someone just took time to say, hey, are you okay? Have you had an induction before? No. I would have like calmed down a little bit if someone just took 5 seconds to say, check in. I know the nurses in the hospitals are busy. I know you probably see this all the time, but maybe I haven't, and maybe explain what's going to happen and how long it's going to take and things to expect. And it's nighttime. So why don't you sleep a little bit? Because once you wake up, you can have you start the contractions maybe and things like that. And I would have calmed down like, okay, all right. It's not like the first time, but okay, this is what we're dealing with now. But that's not how it happened.
I think this is you said a lot of good things. And what was brought to my attention is that this was your second experience. So you had something to compare it to say that this was not right. But a lot of times your second experience, it is other moms' first experience. And so some women will normalize that and have lower expectations for the next birth. And other ones will hold on to that trauma and be afraid to even go for the next birth. Yes. So I think this is a really good time in this podcast to save anybody who is listening who had a traumatic birth experience and maybe didn't realize that before, but after listening to Dr. Zebron's story and realizing that your birth experience may have been traumatic, even though it wasn't an emergency C-section or some big life-threatening situation, mentally and emotionally, it was traumatic. If you need to pause and take a break, we learned this from one of our other ladies that we interviewed, but if you need to pause at this moment and take a break and process those feelings that you may have been internalizing, this is the perfect time to do so. Okay. Let's move on and let's talk about how you feel obstetrics and PT kind of go hand in hand.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's something else that's not taught in schools as well or gone over in schools because I think a lot of times people think like birth is medical. Oh, that's for the OBGYN. That's it. That's their thing, the nurse's thing. No one else deals with that at all in the birth room. But becoming a pelvic floor PT, learning so much more about our bodies and how they work, and we as movement specialists and safety specialists and just all of that, we can apply so much knowledge in the birth room with changing positions. If someone has a stalled labor, why don't we try this? Or even pain management. All of that goes in we do as physical therapists, and I think that can be very helpful to women in the birth room.
Now, do you have experience doing that?
Not in the birth room. No.
Okay, no, because I love
there's a whole group of people who do that, but it's also hard to get into because you also have to convince the people in obstetrics who are doctors that this is valuable, and it's very hard to do that because that's their thing, that's their baby. To have other people in the room, it's already hard enough to get doulas in the room. So
but you're so right.
Too many people for them. It's just a lot of people. Like, why is that so many?
Well, it's a lot of people, so they invite their students to come watch us deliver our babies because there are people who are really in the groove, and then they're like, "Oh, do you mind if 10 students come and watch this baby come out?" And it's like, "Oh yeah, I guess that's fine. You're pushing at this point. You don't care who comes in." But it's like you don't want people in the room who can hold you accountable. That's how I feel. And there are very few, that will let you do that. And I know that when I was a student, nobody had an issue with me coming to watch anything. But as a PT, it is few and far between. I know that Jessica has met someone who allows procedures to be watched and things like that, but I have not. So I'm going to keep looking, but I just feel like we could learn so much more about what's going on with C-sections if we actually got to watch one take place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as students, you have to create that experience for yourself, or you're going to miss the boat, and then you start becoming someone who can't be trusted in the OR. So that's all I'll say about that. But I think that your ideas are amazing. So, I love that you're in this space with women. So tell us about, I'm in love with the whole plant-based thing. You have a lot of things going on with moms, but can you talk with us a little bit about how you make moms' journeys safer by intervening with their diets?
Yes. So I'll start by saying, like, I started incorporating a plant-based diet about 2 years ago myself because of just health issues and just not knowing what's going on, going to the doctor, and they're like, I don't know, you seem fine. Maybe you can try whatever you want, or your blood levels look okay. Like, there's nothing really going on. But I knew something was going on because I don't feel right. So I tried whatever they said to try, and I tried changing my diet to like anti-inflammatory, which still included like some fish and things like that, but something still wasn't right. So it was after becoming like pescatarian, I was like, you know what? Something's still off. Why don't I just try not having meat at all, which was like crazy at the time. I was like, well, why not just try it? Why not go like a month or whatever without having it? And I was like, but isn't it like a vegan? I'm not really vegan. Like what? So I was looking it up. I was like, but I really just want to eat more plants. I just want to eat healthier and take out the meat as well. So I kind of just Googled. I don't know why I needed a name, but I needed a name other than vegan. I was like, is there anything else that sounds like that? And then plant-based came up. I was like, what's plant-based? And this is 2 years ago. I was like, what's plant-based? And I was just reading up on it, how it just incorporates whole foods, mostly plants. It doesn't include meat or animal products. And just hearing that it's kind of focused mostly on health. And obviously veganism incorporates just the entire lifestyle. They don't wear anything with animal products. They don't associate with anything animal products. It's like all inclusive, but I was at the time mostly there for my health. So I found whole food, plant-based. I started eating that. Went on a little journey with that. Of course, there's bumps in the road with any transition. But once I found my way, found my routine in that, and had the toxins leave my body, I was feeling 100% better. All the symptoms that I felt and pains all over my body went away. So I was like, this is what I needed. Constipation gone. I was like, the doctors couldn't explain it. All they had to do was tell me to eat some whole foods, and that really helped me out a lot. I even saw like a pelvic floor therapist who didn't share anything about plant-based foods. And as a pelvic floor therapist, I always even just say a little bit, like, hey, how's your diet? Like even a sentence or a minute, I just talk about, hey, how's your diet? Even if we're not doing anything with the diet, they came in for something else. I always, even if it's incontinence, I always say, even though we do talk about liquids that affect incontinence, but I do also incorporate, hey, what else are you eating? Oh, okay. Well, have you tried this? No. And I don't push it too much. We got other things to talk about, but I do also talk about that. So finding healing through a plant-based diet, and this was still postpartum. This is only 2 years ago that I started this. My youngest is 3. So still in that postpartum season, I always say postpartum is not just the first 6 weeks, it's years after. So still kind of early in this postpartum season, found healing. So I wanted to help other women and other moms have this healing as well. If this could help me, this can help somebody else too. And even those that I helped in my pelvic floor clients, even just adding in like a kale smoothie, they were like, yeah, wow, I'm going a little bit more regularly now. I don't have to take the stool softeners. I'm like, yes, keep doing that. And they're like, oh. So even just a little thing like that, we were still doing exercises and all these other things, just adding that in made them feel so much better. And they weren't even all the way plant-based. They just added in a smoothie with some kale in it. So just seeing the results with that, I felt like, wow, I can go a little bit further with this. So just reading up a little bit more about plant-based diets and lifestyles. I just started helping women, even if they weren't my clients in pelvic floor, just regular women like you and me. I'm like, hey, who wants to learn more about plant-based diets? Are you having issues with constipation? Are you just not feeling generally well? Do you want to try something different? And I would just have consults with women, and they would just bring their questions and saying, hey, what's this? I've tried this, but can I try this? Or what does this look like? Do you have a recipe for that? And we would just talk just like how you and me are talking, and then they can go on and continue their journey, because it's not an overnight thing at all. It takes time to transition from years of eating however you are eating to eating something else you're gonna stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we love that, because what we found, because, we monitor moms and we look at their stress levels, is that whenever they incorporate plant-based diets, their stress levels go down dramatically. Their blood pressure goes down dramatically. And so we know that preeclampsia is a thing. High blood pressure during pregnancy is an issue. Some women end up with complications from those. And I know that for you also believe, like us, that if people incorporated the plant-based diets before they got pregnant, oh my goodness, how much less stressful would their pregnancies be? How many less complications would they run into? And so it's really nice just to hear you and how it's transformed you, because sometimes it really is hard in the medical industry. If you don't have a metric to put to it, then you can't say, okay, is this good or bad? But for us, it's how do you feel? A lot of things with pregnancy is a feeling. You feel like something is off, or you feel like something is good, or something just feels different. Can you help me investigate? And if you don't have someone who will investigate with you, then you end up either ignoring the symptom or and then running into a complication. Or sometimes you don't run into a complication. So then it becomes okay that people are ignoring your symptoms. And it's never okay. It's just that you haven't run into a complication yet. So I just love that, your approach to figuring it out yourself and now helping other moms. We just think that's amazing.
Yeah. So to also go with that, you talked about a little bit about preeclampsia. So moms, anyone trying to get pregnant, anyone who is pregnant, or even postpartum, preeclampsia is a real thing and is life-threatening. And that's one of the number one killers, especially for Black women. So it's not just, postpartum, not just that 6 weeks, and not just only in pregnancy, is something to always look out for as you're trying to take care of your baby. So if you already have this plant-based diet already in your system, is already there, you don't really have to worry about trying to change your diet as you're trying to take care of a newborn baby, or trying to take care of yourself afterwards. You already have the diet in place. You can just modify it a little bit. And I go into more depth in my consults about that, about what you should be eating quickly after you have your baby. So preeclampsia is a big one. Gestational diabetes is a big one. What else is a big one? And even not just for the mom herself, the baby that she's carrying. So whatever you're eating, that's going to the baby. So this is like a sacred time for you and baby. You want to make sure what you're feeding yourself and your baby is going to be the best for your baby. So figuring that out, because you're not also trying to prevent diseases and things in yourself, also the baby as well. It shows that like a meat-based diet or this American diet can lead to asthma in childhood. It can lead to type 1 diabetes in childhood, which is not reversible. It can lead to so many other things, early puberty, cancers, and all of that. So it's so many things. It's so many things that just simply changing your diet. It's not simple, but just trying to incorporate something new earlier on, it's going to be more routine and easier later.
No, I love what you said, because most of the time, if a mom says, okay, I'll have an induction, like you didn't even know what one was, but you said, okay, because you're saying that something could be wrong with my baby. So that's what moms do. It is a natural instinct that you want to protect your child. So I feel like if we flip that idea, though, on its head and say, okay, eating well is also good for your child. So why don't we just try it? Because but you do have some resistance with moms like, I don't want to change what I'm doing. I'm used to eating this way. Or, they are very far along in their pregnancy when they find out about the preeclampsia. So then it's hard to incorporate changes, or they can't keep anything down. So they're just trying to eat what they can. And that happens to be a steak. And so it's like, if they learn beforehand and then they start practicing it, then if they have to switch, then it's not that big of a transition. Because what we are finding is that when mom comes to us between pregnancies, we're really able to help them get prepared for that next pregnancy. But someone called me just 2 days ago, and it was really sad. They said that the lady's daughter had her first baby at 26 weeks because she had preeclampsia and they couldn't control it. So this pregnancy, well, she didn't do anything differently from the first pregnancy to the second pregnancy. And now she's at 26 weeks and she's run back into preeclampsia, and they're going to deliver her baby in 2 weeks. So it's like, there is so much that could have been done between the first and the second pregnancy. And things like when you say, it is hard to make a change, but it could also save your life, and it can save your baby's life. So it's worth it.
Yeah. So the earlier you start, you can make small changes. Obviously, you don't have to go cold turkey, throw everything out in your kitchen and, get everything new. If you just make small changes, one meal out of the day, I'm like, okay, that's not so bad. I can repeat that the next day. And so going like that can take time, which is why it's better to start earlier, getting this new routine in your life. So it's just clockwork. You don't even think about it, like, yeah, this is what I eat. Just like how whatever you're eating now, you don't think about it like, yeah, this is what I eat. So, and it's not only about what you eat, it's everything that you put inside your body, what you're drinking. Goes down to what you're having medicines and what you're putting on your body. Your skin is the largest organ, the lotions that you're using, the perfumes that you're using. And this can be very overwhelming, which is why you don't do everything at once. It's like a slow, gradual change. You learn another thing like, oh, I didn't know about this. Okay, the next time this bottle runs out, I'm going to get a different lotion, or I'm going to switch to coconut oil or something like that. So it's everything, your environment. I talk a lot about this in the consults that I go, that I do, that it's not only what you eat, it's what you put in your body, put on your body, candles and all of those types of things, the toxins that are in the environment. So,
wow. Do you have any examples of moms that you've helped recently, whether it's like pelvic floor PT or helping with their diet?
Yeah. So one mom, she was pregnant and she wanted to incorporate more of a plant-based diet. And I told her like kind of the same things that we're talking about here today, that you can go slow. What questions do you have? And she just wanted like other recipes that she can use. How can she make this like a long-lasting thing? And she was kind of on the fence at the time, but she had already had some plant-based meals, she already made some. So I was like, well, use what you have. So if you already made, let's say, this oatmeal for breakfast, then try to make that a couple times a week. So that is in your routine things that you make, and you can just keep on eating that and just go gradually. So I was just kind of encouraging her that, once again, it doesn't have to be like a big switch. Throw everything out of your kitchen, throw out all your cleaning products and lotions, and just spend $1 million buying everything at once. Just go slow. Like even me, I'm still like, I still have products. I'm like, oh yeah, I should really change that. Or I still have other things that, it's not the best thing to use, but it's a gradual process. So I was just encouraging her that way, and she felt a little bit better. Obviously, she was occupied with her pregnancy, which is why we always recommend starting before your pregnancy, because it's a lot of change is hard, and change is hard to stick with, especially if you're going to get distracted with being pregnant or other things. So I was just encouraging her.
That sounds so wonderful. Now, for people who don't have ideas, do you happen to have any books that they might be interested in?
Yes, I do have a plant-based postpartum cookbook. It's like a mini book full of a couple different recipes that you can use postpartum. It's best for someone else to cook these, because some of them are a little bit in-depth and you don't need to be doing heavy cooking or boiling beans and things like that after you just gave birth to a baby. This is for like families to make, or things that you can make beforehand or something like that. It's a mini cookbook, and I do want to update it to include a lot of the things that I've learned up until this point. So I'm working on an updated version to this cookbook, which will take some time. It's my own pregnancy. But I will have that hopefully at some point this year, and I will let you guys know about that. But in terms of the one that I have out now, it's on Etsy, and I can share that link today. And I think I can also give out one to someone who's listening, a free one to someone who's listening. Yeah. So I was like, can I do that? Yeah. I want to give one away, so you guys can pick the person, and I'll send.
We are absolutely. We're gonna pick the first person to comment on this podcast, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, wherever, and it has to be somebody who is subscribed to us and liking the episodes.
Okay. So I have two things to give away. So I'm feeling generous. I was like, what?
And it's recorded too, girl. So we are excited.
So I want to give one cookbook away, one mini recipe book away, and I want to give one plant-based consult away. So two different ones, two different people. Can't get all the goods to yourself. Two different people. One gets the cookbook, one gets the consult. So you guys pick and then let me know, and I'll set up the time separately with the person. But yeah.
Thank you so much. This might be our first podcast giveaway. I'm excited about this.
It is.
Give it away. Give it away. I love helping. I love helping moms and women. And even for the cookbook, I mean, anyone can use the recipes. It's just food. It's just food. So anyone can eat it. It's just more warming foods that moms should eat after birth. So
we love that. And you just spilled the beans. I wasn't going to say anything online, but since I know we're wrapping up, and we normally ask what advice you would give to a mom who is expecting, but I think what I want to know is, what are you going to do differently with this next delivery? Because in the way you tell stories and in the way you talk, I think a lot of women will learn from this too. So what are you planning to do differently this time? Or what have you done differently to prepare?
Well, I already have done my plant-based diet. I'm already in my routine. So I didn't just start this and I'm like, okay, what do I cook? How do I cook this? What do I like to eat? Now I'm not trying out different recipes necessarily. I already have a bunch of things that I like. I'm always adding in new things. But I already have my plant-based diet. I already feel much better in this pregnancy than all of the others. And I already have all the knowledge of the birth classes that I teach. I already have the pelvic floor knowledge. So if I have any ache or pain, I know how to fix it. So things like that. So I already have all of this in my toolbox. I already have anxiety tools that I can use. All of the things that I teach my moms. So I'm already doing all of those things differently. But one new thing that I'm going to do is actually get a doula.
Yes.
I'm going to do it. I'm actually going to get the doula this time.
Doulas need doulas too, right?
Doulas need doulas. Therapists need therapists.
Yes.
Moms need moms. Moms need a village. Amen. We cannot do it all on our own. And that's something that we easily suffer from in this modern society, that we're just alone, either just emotionally alone. We just feel alone. Even though there's people around us, we don't feel like anyone knows how to help us. So just finding that village, and that's going to be what I do. And I'm also going to rest. I'm going to take those 40 days literally. Some cultures, you don't get out the bed for 40 days. I don't think I can do that, but I will definitely be resting. I will definitely not be cooking. I will definitely find the help that I need and rest as much as possible, as well as have that doula. And keep on doing my plant-based diet. That's what I'll do differently.
Wow. We're proud of you.
And congratulations. And we are praying for such a happy, healthy birthing experience and new baby for you and your family.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Zebron, can you let our listeners know how they can stay connected with you?
Yes. So I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook. On Instagram, I am the Birth PT. And you can also email me at thebirthpt.com. Yeah, Instagram, pretty much it. I'm also on Facebook. The Birth PT is my business page. So both of those.
So the birthpt@gmail.com if you want to speak with this lovely doctor. And I just love the tag. Don't you love the tag? You are the birth PT. I'm like, blame it, girl.
It is serious. I like it, to the
Yes.
point.
Yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you for coming on. We are so grateful that you did. We have learned so much, and we know our listeners will learn a lot too. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll keep in touch.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Bye.